Yeah, we're going to keep this going. We're going to keep this going. Sure. Yeah, Truth Pilgrim on the chat room points out, have you noticed how many Chinese are appearing in ads and commercials? It's called acclimation. And Dr. D charges to disagree with the powers that be takes really big balls. Who else can stand against the wishes of Lucifer now besides Mr. Douglas? All of you. Yeah, and remember, I'm not really sure that, considering I'm about the most demonized man on the planet right now, I can sort of identify with Lucifer. What if he was actually trying to do good for the people? Now, okay, let's see what else. Did I miss anything here? Yeah, why don't they put swastikas on the side of the FEMA camps? Well, for the same reason they didn't teach you what communism was in school. And remember, the whole scale, fascism, communism, right, left, that's all bullshit. That's all bullshit. It's something to divide you. They want to divide you. They want to keep you angry at the liberals, and frankly, I'd prefer to have a liberal taking care of myself than a bankster, wouldn't you? I don't know. All right, where are we here? Let me see. As I was saying, me, Aaron, Uday, by the way, died right before he could be on my show. Edgar Steele in jail right after being on my show. Roger Christie in jail after being on my show. We're what the banksters behind the scenes here fear the most. We're individuals capable of critical thinking. They refer to us as dangerous men, outlaws, lone wolves, anti-government, right-wing extremists, racists, and anti-Semites, as if by calling us a name that somehow negates the truth of all the information we are providing in our books, films, magazines, and radio shows. I'm not a Mason, a member of a lodge or a club. I'm not a member of or controlled by a church or organization. I'm not held in mental bondage to dogma. I am not programmed by television, which is controlled by the very people that have enslaved us. I refuse to be a slave. We are knowledgeable in a variety of fields. We have open minds and high IQs. We're willing to listen to new ideas, think outside the box, and we'll question orders. We're veterans who remain loyal to our oaths to defend a constitution of the people, for the people, and by the people. We are the people who will not be ruled by consensus. We speak out if we see a wrong being committed. We can be leaders of men in the Christian tradition without being in the control of a church. That makes us very dangerous to the New World Order. The very words passed on to us by George Bush are lies. There is no New World Order, simply the old one with new technology. The methods and the evil minds behind them are ancient. There are a lot of us out there, but it is still a small part of the population. The majority has been taken in by the programming and propaganda television gladly supplies. Keep in mind, it does not take a majority to rule. The neocons in Washington and the Jews in banking and our news media are only 2% of the population. Research their power without the fear of being called an anti-Semite. Our history and our Bible are replete with examples of our enslavement and incarcerations under tyrannical rulers and the actions of a few to combat and counter these neighbors and fellow countrymen, collaborators who have succumbed to the lure of money, acceptance, and peer pressure. The men who fought the British were less than 10% of the general population. Many of the rest were Tories. During the Revolution, particularly after the Declaration of Independence in 1776, this term was used to cover anyone who remained loyal to the British crown. At the beginning of the war, it was estimated that as much as 40% of the American population were Tories. Now, in many ways, I consider myself lucky. It's interesting that today, we patriots, standing up for our Constitution at a time when the British banksters have full control of our government money, we're the ones that are being demonized by the media. Many of the patriots I know and worked with, like Mark Gregory Cornke, known as Mark from Michigan, Fritz Springmeier, went to jail on trumped-up false charges. Ernst Zundel was kidnapped from his wife home, shipped to Canada, and then to Germany to stand trial and do time there, accused of denying the Holocaust. Too many others have been killed. And John S. Toro points out what we're up against. The United States has come to the forefront in mind control since it took over the German programs as well as Japanese programs after World War II. The most well-known program in the United States is Project Monarch. The reader must now understand that as we begin to research this nether world of darkness, it is run by ruthless intelligence agents who do not abide within the limits of the law. Instead, they make their own laws as they go, and all the intelligence services of the last 50 years are controlled and operated by the world government. Thus, the President of the United States does not have control over the CIA, the intelligence services of the Army, Navy, Air Force, etc. Instead, they answer directly to the world government. That's the reason why the KGB, the Mossad, MI5, and CIA work together in the world doing their dirty business. Most recently, Edgar Steele, attorney for the Aryan Nations, Richard Butler, and the Christines, a couple whose children were taken from them in Oregon. Edgar was a regular guest on my show. After our last one, he was put in jail, charged with trying to hire a hitman to kill his wife. This happened shortly after Edgar did his last show with me, and after he survived a heart attack. Edgar was demonized as I was by the same people speaking out about these Jewish organizations, the ADL and SPLC, with links to the Mossad, ALIPAC, and the banksters. Hear what his wife has to say on my show. Click on her name, Cindy Steele. The years prior to May 20th, 2004 were stressful but productive. The Free American was selling well in Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and bookstores nationwide. I just finished my film, The True Face of FEMA, featuring Colonel John Brinkerhoff lecturing law enforcement at Sandia Labs, Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque. A scary film, talking about the next war, a war that might last longer than the Cold War, that would be fought on American soil. This was immediately following 9/11 and the rolling of FEMA into the newly formed Department of Homeland Security. I read a brief story about the Mossad demanding an office in Homeland Security. Well, they got the whole shooting match with dual citizen Michael Chertoff. I produced 3 other films, including Chemtrails, the video, still the most comprehensive account of the spraying in America. I distributed Miracle 2 products, and a lot of books by many authors were for sale on my website. I had a home, a store, a complete bookstore, and mail order business on the north half of Bingham, New Mexico, the only 2-house town in New Mexico still on the map. I raised $250,000 over shortwave to build a small town in New Mexico called Playas that was for sale by Phelps Dodge. It had 200 homes, a gas station, livestock pen, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, grocery store, and bowling alley. Within days after putting in an offer, Governor Bill Richardson came on TV to say that the government needed to buy Playas. They overbid me by $3 million, bought the town, and turned it into a Homeland Security training facility and began blowing it up. They told residents I wanted to buy the town to sit on top of the nearby mountain and shoot illegal aliens. And by the way, the money was returned to all investors from the trust fund set up by my attorney. I started promoting Liberty Villages. That's, and you can see that, libertyvillage.org, in the Free American, featuring low-cost housing, teepees, yurts, small cabins, growing non-genetically modified foods, raising unchipped chickens, goats, and range-fed cattle in nearby ranches. The plan called for producing our own power from the sun, composting, wind, and magnetic. In that time period, I started Arizona Thunder Riders magazine for Biker in Phoenix. I rented a house, set up an office. My sons helped me sell advertising, and Vincent Del Curdo ran the Free American Bookstore in New Mexico. In a short time, New Times called Thunder Riders Arizona's premier biker magazine. The March 2004 issue of the Free American featured building number 7 on the cover with Larry Silverstein's quote about pulling the building. In April, the story about Bush allowing the NSA to tap everybody's cell phones broke in the New York Times. What the mainstream press failed to tell you was that the 2 companies doing the tapping were Israeli. Fear of the Jews pulling advertising. On May 20th, 2004, I called home and asked my son where he wanted me to go next. He asked where I was, and I told him I was at the Sacred Skin Tattoo Parlor on the north side of Phoenix. Go down 24th Street to McDowell, turn left, go to the wheel shop. It was early. There was little traffic. I was the only motorcycle on the street, and 3 blocks before I got to McDowell, I was T-boned by a woman in a borrowed car with no license or insurance, a woman my sons could not find, and who never went to court with me. An accident or something else. 4 months of induced coma for 3 broken ribs and a broken collarbone, $750,000 hospital bill, a visit by 2 guys that wanted to know if I'd been hallucinating and claiming to be CIA. I had, but I hadn't told anybody. Woman claiming she needed to give me an injection, then she tried to bring in 4 security guards to hold me down when I refused. After a little talk, they decided not to attempt that. The whole story of that is in my latest book, Mystery Babylon. My family was told I might never be right again. They were told to get guardianship, arranged for long-term care when I was out of the hospital, not to let me drive and to keep me medicated. I refused to take any medication. The court sent out an investigator. The investigator from the court told me, I've been doing this work for 7 years. I interviewed 7 head injury patients before you today. You're the most well-recovered head injury patient I ever met. Maybe I wasn't as badly injured as they said. That was my comment. My wife listened, made a rude comment after she left. You sure smoothed her. My wife and family left that week. Later on, she told me from her father's home in Tennessee that she wanted a 6-month separation. I gave her a divorce. Alright, let's see where we're at here. Okay. Oh yeah, okay. These people are idiots, pure idiots. Okay. I'm just amazes me you can stand there and put up with that kind of harassment. But okay, let's see what else we got here. Okay. 11 minutes remaining. All right. And in the chat room. Alright. Chat room there is working good. And alright. Get 2 minutes, so let me finish this up. Now, looking back, I choose to point the finger of blame at the hospitals and the doctors instead of my family. Did they think they were acting on my behalf? They thought that the doctors saved my life. I felt they had tried to overdose me. Did I need 3 months of medically induced coma because of a brain injury? I underwent evaluations by psychiatrists, was interviewed by court-appointed investigators. My son had me picked up by the police and taken to a psychiatric center in Phoenix. I remember the threat one of my sons made. We're going to put you in an old folks home, Dad. We're going to run the magazine. Police apologized, told me I'd be released as soon as I talked to a psychiatrist. I was. And this type of thing goes on all the time in all areas of the country. Carolyn Russo was stripped of everything. Her friends, her family, her home. This was a woman that was being held by the state as mentally ill. I believe this is in Maine, and therefore incompetent. And a judge determined she was competent enough to understand the workings of the court, but not competent enough to make her own health and financial choices. This is not an isolated incident. It doesn't just happen to old people. Donna Taylor, my guest yesterday, and her son Mark came down to meet me in Tucson. Mark Taylor was a young man shot 7 times at Columbine who survived. He was featured in Michael Moore's Bowling in Columbine. When they left, they went to Phoenix. There, Donna took her son to the emergency room for some medical issue. That was months ago. He was transferred to a private care facility. His mother and brother are not being allowed to see him. Her cries to the governor, the press, and the FBI proven fruitless to her point. You can hear that show yesterday on the 25th. And Paul Pantone. He was just on my show a few weeks ago. Paul Pantone. I've known him for over 25 years. When we first met, he showed me a carburation system he had invented that involved into the Gheen system. I heard these tapes that Paul made of the oil company executives threatening him. He was picked up and put into one of those facilities and held for 3.5 years before we were finally able to free him. Was my family justified in leaving me on my own 3 weeks after the hospital? They claim I ran them off. I may have, because I've never been able to talk to them about this since they left. I know that my wife's father, former Assistant Secretary of Agriculture under Kennedy, told her he would disown her if she came back to me. Faced with bills I could not pay, questions which had no answers, I tried borrowing money, tried to sell advertising, tried to bring Free American back up. I was not successful. So I sold one of my magazines to a publicly traded company. They bought 50% and put a press release out on Wall Street on Friday that they had bought Arizona's premier motorcycle magazine, and the publisher, Clay Douglas, would remain owned as publisher. Monday, I walked into my new office, and was told they could not go through with the deal. Someone with something against Clay Douglas interfered with the sale of one of my Thunder Riders magazines for $500,000. Someone with the ability to tap my phones and the staff to contact 250 stockholders in a publicly traded company to tell them it was a bad deal. What a bad deal it was to do business with Clay Douglas. Someone who had the power to make stock prices for a certain company drop in days. The word anti-Semite surfaced, making it pitifully clear who was behind these attacks. The contract we signed was in my briefcase. I walked out of that office and into obscurity. The words for bigotry that are often used as anti-Semitic, anti-white, anti-black, anti-Arab, anti-feminist, anti-gay, hundreds of other labels, are for the most part overstated. Instead, the demonized viewpoints should be seen as pro-white or pro-Jewish or pro-woman or pro-traditional family and should not be considered shameful. These pro-sensibilities are part of the human condition, not to be pathologized into an anti. It's about group interest. A race or ethnic without a sense of peoplehood or identity will end up being used to achieve the goals of other ethnics. Our feelings, our thoughts of peoplehood are not pathological. They're natural. The European Americans will have white ethnic interests. It's not racist to have them, just as Hispanics, Asians, Jews, and blacks have their own ethnic interests. It should not be considered a pathology for whites to have them. I moved back to New Mexico to restore my magazine and the Liberty Village plan. While I struggled with all the unknowns and loneliness, the opposition sat on their agents, people who wanted to help me, with no family or as backing. The attacks increased. Burglaries, threats, whispers to advertisers, my computers and guns stolen. As for investors, I got them. I received over $1 million in donations and investments, all in hot checks. The FBI said it was probably those Nigerian scammers. Nothing they could do. No extradition treaty with Nigeria. You've done everything right, Mr. Douglas. I've got 5 bank accounts closed down for depositing those checks. What exactly did I do to deserve that? You think I'm Kreskin, could hold a check up to my head and tell if it's a forgery or not? In fact, the fact that I was able to walk in and walk out of the Albuquerque FBI office should be indicative to the fact that they do not consider me a high risk or a criminal in spite of the crap ADL and SPLC feeds them. Alright, what time we got left here? Let me see. Okay, I'm going to finish this up. About that time period, a woman showed up, wanted to help me. Handed me a check for $10,000. Said she'd been a subscriber for years, wanted to help the Liberty Village. She did help. I got another issue out with that. She wanted to live with me. She wanted to get married. My credit was in a shambles, so she suggested letting her buy the property. I had to use that money to buy teepees and yurts and convert our half of Bingham, New Mexico into Liberty Village. Then I would be able to offer them as a turnkey business. We made the deal in Florida. For a few weeks, I was really happy. I found a new lady. She knew who I was. She was in love with me. Then, as soon as we closed on it, and I had my money, she kicked me off the property. love gone wrong, or a well-executed plan to remove me from my home and kill a business I'd been promoting for years. The home I had for so long was suddenly off limits. John Nutter was on my show. You can click on his name on my website and hear that show. He tracks and documents gang stalking. He believes that's what was done to me, and being done on this current date, to this current date, has been designed to force me to commit suicide. They've come close to achieving that. To go from a successful writer and businessman to a virtually homeless man with no family and a relative blink of an eye is almost overwhelming. On the morning of May 20th, I was all of those things, and when I woke up 3 months later, everything had changed. No Patriot talk shows would interview me. My family was gone. The love of my life was gone. Every attempt to reach out to rebuild has somehow been thwarted. The website I established almost 20 years ago, it was hijacked. It was purchased from the owner, run for 2 months, then all the equipment and information taken, never paid for, and closed down. The books and films I wrote and produced were not selling because my re-established website was blocked in every library and on public computer companies like Intel and Intuit. I recently went to LA to meet with a Jewish lawyer and producer. He wanted a series for HBO on bikers. I told him I had a concept, provided a treatment for him. I drove 600 miles to meet him. He kept me standing on his porch for 45 minutes, refused to look at any of my previous work, demanded a contract that would have given him 45% off any income of all my extra work, earlier work. I refused to sign and walked away once more. The script is still available. It stems from a novel and short story I began writing 40 years ago. Under normal circumstances, a man with my professional writing would have no problem finding an agent or publisher. I cannot. The agents don't handle new clients, they say. The publishers don't want to talk to me without an agent. And lawyers have all been con artists, in my opinion. Alright, I think we're out. Almost out of time. Almost out of time. Now, folks, okay, what do you got to say in the chat room? Okay. Folks, if you want to help, my numbers are 505-908-9498. On Skype, it's Free American 69. The Mystery Babylon is a great book. My other books deal with current situations, and they're fiction, but they're almost more believable than the nonfiction. I appreciate you listening. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you tell your friends about it. I hope you can make a donation and try to help support it. There is a lot of pressure against me. There's a lot of, you've got all your instigators out there, all your provocateurs, and that goes on almost every day. Stand with me. Back me a little bit. I've been doing this for a long time. I'll continue to try to do it. God bless you, and have a great day.
Call recording has been completed.
Like the sky, your spirit is one with me. Your wings span the mighty ocean. Your eyes see everything. The slightest of your motions can make the continents ring. Yet in all your might and glory, vanished from the skies, leaving just another story, missed millions